Good evening, Brick Church, and welcome to our Good Friday service. As I'm sure you can tell, I'm here in our old brick church because this is the place where we normally gather for this service. And even though you are not here with me in body, I trust that you are here with me in spirit. Now, would you join me as we sing together our Lenten call to worship, Lead Me to Calvary. King of my life, I crown thee now, thine shall the glory be. Lest I forget thy thorn-crowned brow, lead me to Calvary. Lest I forget Gethsemane, lest I forget thine agony, lest I forget thy love for me, lead me to Calvary. May I be willing, Lord, to bear daily my cross for thee. Even thy cup of grief to share, thou hast borne all for me. Lest I forget Gethsemane, lest I forget thine agony, lest I forget thy love for me, lead me to Calvary. Would you join with me in reading responsively our opening prayer? Jesus, we have come to Calvary with you. We seek to know the agony you suffered there. Teach us to endure as you endured the scorn of unbelievers and the torments of our enemies. Save us to despair when our enemies circle round us. Help us keep strong faith in you forever. When we falter, rescue us. When we forget your promises, refresh our memories. And when we face death, be with us faithfully. Listen to these selections from the Gospel of Mark that tell the story of Jesus' journey to the cross. He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life?" When they bring you to trial and hand you over, do not worry beforehand about what you are to say, but say whatever is given you at that time. For it is not you who speak, but the Holy Spirit. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise against parents and have them put to death, and you will be hated by all because of my name. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. Immediately, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him there was a crowd with swords and clubs, from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard." So when he came, he went up to him at once and said, "Rabbi," and kissed him. Then they laid hands on him and arrested him. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. For many gave false testimony against him, and their testimony did not agree. Some stood up and gave false testimony against him, saying, "We heard him say, 'I will destroy this temple that is made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another not made with hands.' But even on this point their testimony did not agree." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them. And after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. Then the soldiers led him into the courtyard of the palace, that is the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole cohort. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on him, and they began saluting him. "Hail, King of the Jews!" They struck his head with a reed, spat upon him, and knelt down in homage to him. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him. Then they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of a skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his clothes among them, casting lots to decide what each should take. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "Listen, he's calling for Elijah." And someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down." Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble. Tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
Yes, I was there. I was there throughout the whole ordeal. But I was with him all along, right from the very beginning. I was with him in the wilderness. It was I who said, "If you be the Son of God, command these stones to be turned into bread." I was trying to convince him even then that he was a fool for believing that he was the promised one, that he could have any effect on mankind and its destiny. But he was too strong for me then. He pushed me aside and began his work. But I am not dismissed that easily. I followed him, and I attacked him again and again. But I went about it in a different way. I lashed out at him through his followers, those who came to hear his teachings. But again I failed, for his words warmed even the saddest of hearts. The blind received their sight, the lame walked, the dead returned to life. But I was not to be outdone. I remained with his followers, and some of them I won. Through my efforts, some of them sought ways to trap him, discredit him, finally destroy him. I even worked my way into his circle of friends. I convinced one of them to betray him. It took a lot of doing, but I had him where I wanted him. Because of me, he said, "Let this cup pass from me." He was wondering if it had to be this way. He was doubting the climax of his mission. Yes, he knew that I was there. He had seen my presence in the faces of his followers, and once again he was feeling my attempt to surround him. I am doubt, and I was there. I was there, but I failed to destroy him. Once again he dismissed me with, "Not my will, but thine be done." I was there, but he overcame me.
I am sorrow, and I was there. Believe me, I was there. I too attacked him with a vengeance. Many have fallen from the broken heart that I inflict, but not this one. Many have abandoned their goals, their dreams, and hopes, and chosen to live in self-pity. But again, he did not. I did my best to defeat him. I reminded him constantly that he was unwanted in this world. I came to him as rejection, scorn, and ridicule. I tried to tell him that he was ridiculous for loving those who did not want him. I did my best, but I too failed. Oh, I brought him plenty of heartache. I caused tears to fill his eyes on many occasions, but I couldn't break him. I couldn't even make him feel sorry for himself. Even as he was struggling under this cross, his thoughts were on others. He said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but for yourselves and your children." I inflicted myself heavily upon him, but I couldn't destroy him.
I am shame, and I too was there. Perhaps I have failed because he was so used to me now. I have been with him since his birth. I was the manger, the king's cradle. I was beside him in Nazareth when his friends and neighbors ran him out of town as a false prophet. I was in the sneering faces of his tormentors. I was the crown of thorns around his head. I was in the dice that the soldiers threw as they gambled for his clothing. I was in the sign that hung over his head. I was in the cross itself, making it heavier as he carried it. I was there, but I could not break his spirit.
Were you there when they nailed him to a tree? Were you there when they nailed him to a tree? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to a tree?
I am fear, and I was there. I literally surrounded him. I was with him in the garden. It was I who placed those great drops of sweat upon his forehead. I danced at him in the soldiers' flaming torches, and I winked at him in the glistening of their swords and spears. I was present in every crack of the whip, and I was in the descending hammer that drove the nails through his hands and feet. I was quite effective against his disciples. One of them denied ever knowing him, and they all ran like frightened children. I felt certain that I could destroy him. I longed to hear his voice beg for mercy. I longed to hear him promise to leave the country and abandon his foolish mission. I longed to hear this, but he remained silent. He refused to defend himself. He refused to retract anything that he had said. To be sure, he felt my presence, but I couldn't destroy him. I have failed.
I was there, and I didn't let him forget my presence for 1 minute. I burned into his forehead with thorns. I caused the sweat to trickle into his lash marks. I caused him to fall with weariness under the burden of his cross. Then I attacked him as brutally as I could. I ran across his body as the nails pierced his flesh. I caused his tongue to swell up and burn with thirst. I beat upon him with the hot rays of the sun, causing his body to dehydrate. As I was increasing my attack to its strongest, I leaped for joy. I thought I had succeeded. I heard him cry, my God, why?" But my celebration was premature, for with his final words he entrusted himself into his Father's hands. I am agony, and I afflicted him greatly, but I too failed to destroy him.
I was there, and how I hated him. But you see, I hate everybody, for I am hate. I do my job well. I intended to destroy this teacher of love, and I tried. Believe me, I tried. But what were the results? He said, "Father, forgive." I couldn't even make him hate that miserable wretch hanging beside him who asked for mercy. He wouldn't curse his tormentors. He would curse his father, and worst of all, he wouldn't even curse himself for going through with this foolish endeavor. Oh, how I hated him, but I couldn't make him hate me. He is my greatest failure of all time.
Were you there when they laid him in a tomb? Were you there when they laid him in a tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in a tomb?
I was there, and unlike my colleagues, I did not fail. Sooner or later, every human being falls beneath my power, and this man was no different from the rest. He made a lot of grand promises. He called himself the resurrection and the life. But today, I proved that even he must submit to my eternal darkness. I proved that the peace and joy and love that he spoke of will melt away in my presence. Tonight, I reign victorious, and he lies defeated. He lies like a crippled army at the end of a war. This war is over, and I have won. I am death, and the victory is mine.